Hi, welcome back to another video, and this video is going to be a quick little, I guess, a quiz review for you guys to use so you can get a nice grade. If you follow everything on this video and do everything and understand it, chances are you're going to get a nice little A in your quiz. All right, so anyway, we're just going to do 3 questions today. It says find the x and y intercepts. Now, whenever you see the word intercept or intercepts, basically you're going to plug in 0. You're going to plug in 0 for x and y, and then solve separately. So don't do it at the same time. You're going to plug in for, let's say you're going to plug in for 0 the first time, solve for y. Then we're going to plug in for y. We're going to put the 0 into the y and then solve for x. Let's go ahead and let me show you what I mean. Okay, so here's what I used to do back in the good old days. I used to make an XY table just like this, right? And I put a 0 here for your x, which means you're going to plug in 0 for the x and solve it. Whatever you get, you're going to get your y. And then we're going to plug in 0 for y, right? And then we're going to get our x. Now, sometimes when you plug in a 0, you will get 2 solutions. So let's keep our eyes open for that one. All right, let's go ahead and do it. So first things first, we're going to plug in, let's go ahead and plug in 0 for x like we have here. So all you do is put y is equal to absolute value 0 plus 6 minus 5. 0 plus 6 is just 6. The absolute value of 6 is always going to be positive. Is how many, the absolute value asks you, it asks you how many spaces is that number away from 0. So the answer is just 6, okay? The absolute value of positive 6 is 6. The absolute value of negative 6 will also be a positive 6. And now we have y is equal to 6 minus 5, which is 1. So we just got our hands on the first intercept. When your x is 0, your y is 1. So there's your first intercept right there. So when you're submitting this, it's a coordinate, right? These are x and y coordinates. So your first, I guess you could say this, you could say y-intercept is 0, 1, because this is x and y, right? So that's acceptable. Anyway, we're done with the x-intercept, so let's go ahead and find the, we're done with the y-intercept, so let's go ahead and find the x-intercepts, and it's very similar, but this time you're going to plug in for your y. You're going to plug in 0 for your y. So 0 is equal to the absolute value of x plus 6 minus 5. Okay, so we're trying to get the x by itself, right? There are a few things that we have to get, we have to isolate a couple things. We have this plus 6 in the way. We have it surrounded by absolute values. We have a minus 5 over here. So here's how you want to do it. You want to get things away from the x. So we start with the outermost number or whatever it is. Let's go ahead and take care of this minus 5 by adding it to both sides. Okay, so we have 0 plus 5, which is 5. And this is equal to the absolute value of x plus 6. So far, so good. So now we have to get rid of the absolute value. We can't just subtract the 6 from both sides because it's surrounded by these borders here. So we have to get rid of the borders. And the best way to go about that is to, let's catch you up on absolute value. Now, remember what absolute value means is the number of spaces away from 0. So I'm just going to come here as an example. Just a little quick refresher. So the absolute value of negative 3, we know is positive 3, right? And the absolute value of positive 3 is also positive 3. So we got 2 of the same solutions from 2 different possibilities, right? So if you have a problem like this, like they'll say the absolute value of x is equal to 3, what numbers can you plug in here for x that would give you a positive 3? Well, if we plug a negative 3 in here and a positive 3, we'll get positive 3 both times. So you have 2 different possible solutions. So if they give you a problem like this, the first step would be to take whatever whatever is inside the absolute value, just go ahead and take it out. And then you're going to equate it to the positive version of this, which is still positive. And you're also going to have a negative version, which is the negative version of this, which is negative. So x can be positive 3 and negative 3. And you're going to see how we implement the plus 6 as well. So let's go ahead and erase the example. Remember, you can just rewind or do what you have to do. But keep that concept in mind. You have two different possibilities whenever your variable is inside of the absolute values. So let's go ahead and get rid of this absolute value. And just for me, I'm gonna go ahead and rearrange it. If 5 is equal to the absolute value of x plus 6, can't we say that the absolute value of x plus 6 is equal to 5? Yes, we can. It's just a little, it's my OCD kicking in. I like to have my absolute values, my radicals and stuff like that on the left side. But you can leave it like this if you like. As long as if you separate them into two different possible solutions. And what I mean is, remember what I said about absolute values having a positive version and a negative version? So here's what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and take this out of the absolute value. We have x plus 6 is equal to positive 5. And then we're going to also put the negative version, x plus 6 is equal to negative 5. The only thing that changes signs is this outside number right here, whatever it is. All right, and you know what? Let me I'll erase this piece right here, just so we can have more room. Okay, so all you do is solve separately for the both of them, and you'll be done. So let's go ahead and subtract the 6 from both sides. We get x is equal to -1, right? So we're done with that one. So there's your first x-intercept, -1. And over here, we're going to solve for this guy. So x is equal to -5 minus 6 more is -11. So we are done. So in your little table, we substituted 0 for x, and we got a 1 out, right? And then we substituted 0 for y, and we got two different answers. So we're going to have two different intercepts. So you plugged in 0 the first time and got -1. You plugged it in the second time and got -11. And we are done. So you want to write it nice and neat. Our y-intercept is when your x is 0. That's this guy here, so 0, 1. And we also have the two x-intercepts. Sorry about that. Let's just put xint. And we got two different solutions, -1, 0, and -11, 0. So those are your two intercepts. That's your answer. And we're done with this one. So let's go ahead and go over the next possible questions that they may throw at you, and that's involving midpoint. So for midpoint, remember, you have a midpoint formula, and they'll I've seen them give it as a capital M, right? And all you do, right? So let's say you have 2 points. Let's say you have x1, y1, and you also have x2, y2. The generic formula, all it says is that you have to take your x1 and your x2, add them up, and divide whatever that is all over 2. So make sure that this fraction bar is underneath both of them, not just this guy and not just this guy, but both of them. And then we're going to do the same thing with the y's. Add the y's together and divide by 2. So they can throw, these can be numbers, right? And let me give you an example. So we're just going to keep this little formula here in mind as we handle business over here. So let's say they give you -5, -7, and 3, -1. So fear not, we have negatives, but it's okay. If you like, go ahead and label this as x and y, x and y. This is point number 1. So put 2 1s there as the subscripts. This is the second point. This is point number 2. So put a 2 and a 2 here. All right, and let's just follow what the formula says. The formula says take your x's, so this x and that x, take your two x's, and we're going to add them together. So you see how I have a big parentheses here to hold everything inside, and I have a comma in between because this is a coordinate right here. I'm just going to make a big parentheses with a comma in the middle. And, you know, you're going to have fraction bars. I need a new writing pad. All right, anyway. All right, so let's go ahead and add our x's. So we have x1, which is -5, plus x2, right? x2, which is 3. And we're going to divide that thing by 2. And we're going to do the same thing with the y's. Take your first y, your y1, which is -7. We're going to add. And your y2, which is -1. And we're going to divide that by 2. So we have everything we need. We just have to make sure we do the algebra correctly. And negatives can be confusing, but I got your back. So what do we have here? We have -5 plus 3, right? Which one would win? -5 would definitely overtake 3 no matter what, whether it's positive or negative. So remember the expression, the bigger number takes the sign. So this answer up here is going to be negative. So we know this is going to be negative because -5 plus 3, 5 is larger. So the answer is going to be negative. But then what do we add or subtract them? Whenever you have two different signs, you subtract. So -5 plus 3 is just -2. Because 5 minus 3 is 2. Let's do the same thing here. We have a -7 and we're adding another negative. Whenever you add two negatives, that answer is going to stay negative. So they have the same sign, right? So you're going to keep the sign and you actually add them because they're the same sign. Over here, there were different signs, so you subtract. Over here, they're the same sign, so you add. And 7 plus 1 is going to give you an 8. And now, all we do is go ahead and divide. So -2 divided by 2 is -1. And we have -8 divided by 2 is a -4. And this is the midpoint. This is the point that's in between these 2 points that we created. So, you know, if you make a little XY, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, just very quickly. Okay, something like that. Let's plot the original, -5, -7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That'll be somewhere right here. I'm just estimating, don't mind this. And we have 3, -1, like don't mind the scale. And the midpoint that we got was -1, -4. So -1, -4 should be the point that's in the middle of these. So -1 for x and 1, 2, 3, -4 for y. Isn't that in the middle? Like if you run a line right through, wouldn't that, getting kind of messed up here. Wouldn't that be right in the middle? Yes, it is. All right, so let me see. We did absolute value. We did midpoint. Let's go over the last type of question, and that's going to involve circles. So, like in my last video, remember I guess the standard form of a circle is going to be x minus your h plus y minus your k, and it's equal to r squared. So whatever they throw at us, we're going to have to get it in this form, and then we'll just take it from there. And let's see, what can we do? Yeah, so here's an example. How about 33 or something? And it's equal to 0. So they could give you something like this. So here's what you do. Here's how you start it off. If one of these terms if it does not have an x or a y, bring it over to the other side. So this 33 has to go over to the right. You know, I'm looking at this. Let me see. That'll be 4. That'll be 6. I'm looking. Let's make this number a little bit smaller. I just did the problem in my head, and I'm like, it's gonna give us a negative, and that's not good. Let's make it something simple, like let's put a 3. Okay. Yeah, I made this up on the fly, but anyway, we want it to work, and it will. So if it does not have an x or a y, we're gonna go ahead and bring it over to the right hand side, and we do that by subtracting, right? Because it's a positive, we subtract it. So we get x squared plus 4x. And if you remember in my last video, we're going to end up completing the square. So let's leave a space right here. Plus y squared minus 8y plus another space. And this is equal to -3. Remember, we have the spaces here because we do this technique called completing the square. I'm going to put it as CTS for short. And we basically take your b term, we divide by 2, and then we square it, and that's what goes in this little space here and that little space here. But we do them separately. So remember, this is ax squared plus bx plus c, right? What is your b term here? Your b term here is going to be a 4. So in this case, we're going to take 4 divided by 2. Let me make the parentheses a little bit larger than that. We take your 4 divided by 2, square it. So 4 divided by 2 is going to be 2. 2 squared is equal to 4. And we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to take this -8. And we're following the complete the square formula. So -8 divided by 2 would be -8 divided by 2 is -4. -4 squared is 16. So that's what we add here. Now, you remember the rules of algebra, right? Whatever you do to one side, you better do to the other. So if you made a +4 over here, you better put a +4 over here. If you did a +16 over here, whatever you do to one side, you better do the same exact thing to the other side, +16. Okay, so we're almost done. And here's the fun part. By completing the square, you just made a perfect square trinomial. And the shortcut is to take whatever half of this was. So right before you squared it to get this, remember, we squared the 2 to get 4, right? Whatever's in here, inside that parentheses before you squared it, is what's going to be here. In other words, take whatever half of your b term is, and that's what you put here, okay? And make sure you respect the sign. So this is going to be a binomial. Remember, a perfect square trinomial, when you factor it, will have a perfect square binomial. So we're going to do the same thing here. What letter's in front? The y. This is -8. What's half of -8? What's -8 divided by 2? -8 divided by 2 is -4. Make sure you respect the sign. And look how nice and neat that got. Anyway, let's go ahead and add up everything over here to the right. We have -3 plus 4, which is +1. 1 plus 16 is 17. Now, doesn't this look just like what we have up here? Granted, this has a plus, that has a minus. These two agree, but don't get too caught up on those. The formula says that whatever your h and k's are, whenever you have a negative, that means that you just take the opposite. And that's going to be your center. So remember, center, I'm not even sure if you can see that, but center is your h comma k. So your center here will be whatever the opposite of this is. So let's go ahead and write center is the opposite of this, because the formula, whenever you have a negative in any math formula, it means to take the opposite of what you have. So that's negative, whatever this is. So it's basically the opposite of +2. And also the opposite of -4, which is +4. There's your center. The radius is not too bad, but you want to be careful what you put as your radius. It's r, not r squared, but r. Now, we have this guy over here. This is 17, right? Up here is r squared. So r squared would be whatever this is with respect to the formula. Whatever this guy is, That's what this is going to be. So, let's write r squared is equal to 17. But we're not done yet. We didn't come all this way for radius squared. We came all this way for radius. So you're going to end up, to get rid of this square, you take the square root. So r is equal to the square root of 17, and that's your radius. So these two will be your answers. The square root of 17 would be your radius, and -2, 4 would be your center. And that's it. If you follow everything on this little review, you should do very well on your quiz. I recommend going over it a few times. You should be fine. Good luck. And if this video has helped you, please subscribe. I only got 1 subscriber so far, 2 new subscribers so far. Thank you to those 2 subscribers, but I would like to have more. I'm not gonna lie. All right. If you get an A, you have to subscribe. You're bound to subscribing. All right. Take care.